I will call the remote hearing of the Environment and Natural Resources Finance and Policy Conference Committee to order. Today is Saturday, May 8th, 2021. This meeting is held in accordance with Rule 10.01, which was passed and allows for remote hearings. All remote hearings are recorded and live streamed by House Public Information. The clerk will take the attendance by roll.
Chair Hansen is present. Representative Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, present.
Representative Fisher.
Fisher, present.
Representative Hansen.
Heinzman, present.
Representative Morrison.
Morrison, present.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
I'm present. Thank you.
Senator Rude. Senator Rude. Senator Eichhorn. Senator Eichhorn. Senator Thomasoni. Senator Thomasoni. Senator Westrom. Senator Westrom. Quorum is present.
Are we sure a quorum is present?
I believe that we have 6 out of 10, Mr. Chair.
Yep. I think we need.
Mr. Chair, a quorum is not present. We need.
Quorum is not present because I think we need 3 from both bodies. So
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
So no business can occur. Members, we must adjourn by noon today. We do have, I would like Ms. Taylor to walk through the House offer that was presented last evening.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm going to walk through the second House offer, which was dated yesterday at 7:45 last night. The first item is an LCCMR related item. The House is proposing that the House language be accepted for the LCCMR's 2021 bill, which is also the fiscal year 2022 appropriations. With one change, it would replace some background check language that's in rider form on the House side and statutory form on the Senate side to narrow the application of the provision to apply only to recipients who are conducting children's services with the trust fund money, and then also narrowing what is being checked for to background check crimes only. The next items are policy items. The House is proposing to accept the Senate sections 47, which modifies the definition of minnows if the Senate accepts House sections 60 and 61, which make gar game fish. The House is proposing to accept Senate section 166, related to a drainage pilot project in the Bois de Sioux watershed district, if the Senate accepts House section 42, which deals with food packaging labeling for compostable items. The House is proposing to drop Article 9, as discussed previously, the electric assisted bicycles, since it's being handled in the omnibus transportation bill. And the House does not accept the 2-year moratorium on adopting vehicle emission standards.
Members, any questions on the House offer? Senator Ingebrigtsen?
No, it's very clear to me, but we're not accepting the offer. So what I guess our next step would be is to give you a counter offer. If you would like to dive into the offer a little bit, and I can do that. The packaging thing is a huge thing for potentially for retailers, and needs a lot more work in talking with the industries. It just hasn't time for prime time. The offer, I certainly appreciate that with Bois de Sioux, but again, it's just it's a pretty minor one. So we need a bigger and better offer, and we'll be sending you one sometime in here in the near future. But that's where we're at right now, Representative Hansen. And thank you too, by the way, for yesterday pointing out there was a financial aspect to the one offer. But I've said time and again, we're not going to talk about any financials without first getting our targets. So but I appreciate that, and we acknowledge that correction.
So Senator Ingebrigtsen, I was hoping we could get at least one thing done, maybe one of those, so we can get an accomplishment to show our caucuses that we've got one approved. So I maybe maybe the fish one would be something we could agree on, but those were I rewrote those as kind of an equivalent area.
Yeah. Well, I got the letter from the two commissioners, and they're acknowledging that we are moving forward, which is true, we are, but we're kind of at a snail's pace, Mr. Chair. And I'm willing to get going. But again, this target thing is really, really holding us both up here. And when it comes to the other, the other thing too, even the backgrounds for minors, we did a lot of work on that, as you know, in the LCCMR, and that's included in that bill. So we just as soon go with that language. So what we need to do is we need to move on. But if you have something else going today, Mr. Chair, I'm here for the duration, and I will participate if you like.
Thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. We have some other questions. I would note we put the one FY21 LCCMR in just to give you an idea of what we're thinking on the FY20, is that we would accept an equivalent amount, recognizing that in the FY21, we're taking the NRI, I think 840K of leftover money there. So that if there's leftover money in FY20, which we know there is, that 840K would come from the wastewater pond optimization study. That's one of your recommendations. So we would have an equivalent to an equivalent, but we would request that all those projects that were cut by the Senate, the pollinator, the microplastics, the STEM projects, that those be restored. And then we'd still have about 3.5 million, et cetera, that we would have to work out. But recognizing, we'd go back to those things that were approved, I think, individually when we voted on them. And then having that balance of the wastewater pond optimization. I think you were along on that trip when we went to that pond out north of Winona. It seemed like they were really doing good work, and if we could study that. So just to let you know that what we were thinking kind of on the 2020, and realize that there's still work to be done there. But we do have members with some questions on just clarifying. If you'd want to ponder that for a moment, we'll go into Representative Wozlawik has some PFAS. Oh, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just make a couple of comments. It's been very clear. I think I've been very clear that we're not interested in doing any discussions or having any discussions about LCCMR. You're right. We did travel to all these locations like we always do. And again, there was 4 of us members. Yourself, I believe, might be the only one on the House side, but we have 3 members on this conference committee, and we all traveled, and we all certainly know that these projects are very good. I mean, I'm not going to dispute the projects. We have some discrepancies, but I think it's something that we can work out again after we get our targets. I would like to comment on the moratorium for the adopting vehicle emission standards. As you all know, the administrative law judge ruled yesterday in favor of the administration, allowing them to move forward, but that still does not matter to this committee. Frankly, I never once did I ever discuss or say that it was illegal or was not, the governor's office was not responsible moving forward because knowing that it certainly was legal, but that has nothing to do with our negotiations. So I still stand very strong on that, and the legislature can, has the authority to do that as well. So,
Senator
So
Ingebrigtsen, I'm not sure if we've posted, can I just check with Mr. Strohmeyer if we've posted the Stroman Bishop letter? Just so, since you've referenced it, I want to make sure we've got it available, or maybe we can share it on the screen. Since it's been referenced for the committee, is that
Yes,
possible, Mr. Strohmeyer? Or has it been posted?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's been posted.
Okay. Why don't we, Senator Ingebrigtsen, can I go to Representative Wozlawik? And
Go right ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Wozlawik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that we've heard a little bit about, when we first started conference committee, a little bit about PFAS and sort of why it's an important issue to address. I'm wondering if someone from MPCA could talk a little bit more about sort of where we've seen the PFAS show up. I know we talked a little bit about closed landfills and 3M, but I'm wondering if we can get a better idea of where this is and why it's important that we are doing what we can to understand it and deal with it.
Is Ms. Gauthier on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sorry, I had to unmute there. Greta Gauthier, MPCA. Sure, Mr. Chair and Representative Wozlawik, we do have a couple of my colleagues in the room who have been leading kind of our PFAS multi-agency effort. So if I could, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Kudelka.
Mr. Kudelka, Representative Wozlawik.
Mr. Chair and committee members, thank you. For the record, my name is Kirk Kudelka. I'm an assistant commissioner with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And I could talk a little bit about our overall work. The agencies came together and put together the Minnesota PFAS Blueprint. For those that may not be aware, this is a document that outlines 10 critical areas dealing with PFAS, everywhere from determining how to find it in the environments in our for sampling protocol and research efforts, to what levels are of concern to humans' health or ecological risks, to how is it getting into the environment, and then also when it's in the environment, how to clean it up. The representative's question was about how, where have we found it and the like. This is a statewide issue. In a high level, wherever we look for it, we tend to find it at some amount. In some cases, much larger. Many are very familiar with the East Metro area and the 3M disposal areas there, a large area, 150 square miles of impacted, but it's not just an East Metro area, it's a statewide area. And as we continue to monitor and with new technologies and looking at places, we find it. A good example is research we've been doing with our closed landfills. Now, these are landfills that have been closed for decades that were unlined. And we found 98% of them have PFAS detection, with close to 60 of them being with PFAS over the health-based value set by the Department of Health. We found it in other cases where other industries have used it. We found it with plating companies. We found it with municipalities or military operations with the use of firefighting foam. In Brainerd and Duluth are examples of those two. And then we're finding it when we're doing sampling in our solid waste facilities, in our landfill facilities, whether it's leachate or compost facilities in contact water. In addition, we're have found it nationally in various areas, looking into wastewater facilities, biosolids, and that's why the agency has a number of proposals this legislative session that the House has supported to really be able to fully understand the scope, whether it's looking at PFAS in the LCCMR bill and the research there on biosolids, or looking in our waters or sites in our accelerated efforts for the inventory project. So that's a high level of kind of where we're finding it. Overall, again, with better technology, and when we start looking for it, we tend to find it at some level.
Representative Wozlawik.
Thank you, Mr. Kudelka. Can you talk a little bit? I think one of the things that we know is that these are forever chemicals, right? They're these chemicals that stay around. Can you talk about a little bit about sort of what it takes? I mean, they stay forever, but can you talk a little bit about what it takes to get these chemicals out of, for example, in the East Metro. I know they've been doing work on the groundwater and the drinking water there. Can you talk a little bit about what that process looks like in terms of what they've had to do to ensure that people aren't drinking that chemical in their water?
Mr. Kudelka.
Mr. Chair and committee members, it is a very difficult chemical. The PFAS family has some unique characteristics which make it very well suited for commerce, but very difficult to get out of the environment. For one, it's meant to be slippery, so it moves much further than our traditional contaminants. And so you see the disposal sites in the East Metro, again, 150 square miles impacted. That's much larger than we've seen other contaminants at those same 4 originating sites. And so that's one of the issues. The second is they aren't meant to break down in commerce, and they don't break down in the environment naturally. So we have to remove them from the environment and then dispose of them either in a landfill, basically locking them up, or at very high heats. More research is going into that technology, but it's not like petroleum products or some other products where if you subject them to air, or there's this ability where natural attenuation that can be done. That's not possible with these chemicals. And so it creates a real challenge for us to be able to, after the fact, clean up the issue. The third factor that's really a problem is they're bioaccumulative. So when they are in our waters, they bioaccumulate in our fish, they bioaccumulate in humans when they drink the water, which makes it very difficult. The only way to remove that then is cutting off that source, which means removing it from the environment or the source, which is why working upstream, so to speak, on the actual sources is so important, whether it's individual consumer products or industries tracking down that information and start making alternatives where it's not needed.
Representative Zlowick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one final question. I know that there's still a lot of research being done, but do you have any sense for where the PFAS that we're finding in our state is coming from? I know we can't necessarily say like what specific products, but if you have a sense of what we've found in the environment so far, sort of where that seems to be coming from.
Mr. Kudelka.
Thank you. A number of cases, it's in the products that we use either as consumers or individuals. That's how it would have gotten into our closed landfills, in our solid waste compost facilities or wastewater. We're tracking it. A number of sites also are industrial uses, such as in AFFF firefighting foam. That's where we've seen it in military base installations or Brainerd situation. And then it's the disposal aspect of it. For instance, when we find it disposed in landfills it's just a chemical in the East Metro with the company who made it, we found it there. So a number of different sources. We're doing additional research in areas. For instance, in the solid waste area, we've done a lit review, what we've just put up on the website. For instance, why is it being found in compost facilities? And the number one source there is food packaging. And so as we're diving deeper into these areas, we're able to get a better handle. But unfortunately, as we seem to look, we keep finding it in places.
Mr. Kudelka, I just got a note from the Vermont House unanimously passed a bill banning the use of PFAS in food packaging, carpeting, ski wax, and fire extinguishing foam. So ski wax I had not heard of before. So Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And had just a few questions on this PFAS issue. And as Representative Wozliak was talking a little bit about interest in some of the solutions to remove PFAS, I had a question come to mind, and maybe Commissioner Kudelka could give me an update, give the conference committee an update on some of the options that I'm assuming are being worked on for wastewater treatment facilities. If there any new information available, currently I've talked about this before, but currently the solution, quote unquote, is dilution and discharge into the Mississippi and other waters. And that's obviously a concern that we should all be paying attention to. So I'm just wanting to know, is there anything new in that area, or is the dilution and discharge continue to be the only option for our wastewater treatment facilities?
Commissioner Kudelka.
Mr. Chair and committee members, I'd like to kick it over to my counterpart, Katrina Kessler, Assistant Commissioner for Water. She can help and has more detail in that area.
Commissioner Kessler, welcome to the committee and state your name for the record.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Katrina Kessler. I am one of the assistant commissioners along with Mr. Kudelka with oversight of water policy and agriculture. Thanks to Representative Heinzman for the question. I will highlight, as Mr. Kudelka pointed out, that wastewater is one of the conduits that we know bring PFAS to surface water, which then have all of the problematic characteristics that he talked about in terms of bioaccumulation and ending up in fish, and then fish consuming wildlife and people. And one thing that we are doing right now that's highlighted in the blueprint is working with wastewater facilities on a sampling plan. As we have talked about, this is so expensive to treat and is highlighted by Representative Wazelik's questions. The best way to deal with this, as pointed out by the example from Vermont, is to stave it off upstream. So I think our priorities are prevent and then manage and then clean up. And one of the things we're doing with wastewater is developing a monitoring strategy so we can characterize where it is, and so we can work with them to work upstream in their conduit to understand how to minimize that. Another thing we have proposed is in the LCCMR bill, which would be money that would go directly towards what Representative Heinzman has talked about in terms of researching treatment options for wastewater treatment facilities. If we can't minimize and cut it off upstream, what are the options to really manage it at the treatment plant through additional treatment units? We know that granulated activated carbon does a pretty good job, but that is extremely cost prohibitive in most locations, and it would be a big lift for each municipal wastewater facility across the state, hundreds of them, to have to add granulated activated carbon. So the LCCMR project would highlight if there are other treatment options that we can look at, and again, provide resources and technical assistance to municipalities to look upstream to minimize the PFAS that are coming into the treatment plant.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the answer, Commissioner. So it sounds like the research option is a direction that we should be taking very seriously, and I supported the project as it came through LCCMR. Is there anything else on the radar? Otherwise, I appreciate the answer. Mr. Chair?
Representative Heinzman.
It sounds like maybe I wasn't clear enough. So Commissioner Kessler, I was just wondering if there's any other projects or information available in private sector that you're aware of to treat for PFAS. I'm familiar with the LCCMR project. If there's nothing else, that's fine. I was just curious.
Commissioner Kessler.
Chair Hansen and Representative Heinzman, I will say that is the area that we're focused in terms of treatment in Minnesota. We're also looking at minimization options as are highlighted through the proposals in the proposed legislation. It is also important to note and remember that this is not a unique Minnesota problem, and that we are working closely with the region in terms of Wisconsin and Michigan, who are also aggressively looking at sources and ways to minimize this, and as well as with the US EPA. The need to minimize and then find treatment is something that other states are dealing with too. But I don't know specifically at this moment if anyone has found something. I think what we are proposing is pretty much where the country is at this point in terms of minimization, and then looking at additional treatment options that could be economically added at wastewater treatment facilities.
Representative Heinzman, anything else?
No, that covered it for the moment, Mr. Chair. I think we all are searching and hopefully collaborating across the country and beyond to try to find solutions for this. Obviously, it's very prevalent. We're still learning a lot, but it's going to have an even more significant impact as we continue to look for it. We find it in wastewater treatment facilities. It's going to be an ongoing issue, and then and landfills, it's an emerging, although known issue. And we can do all the research in the world and so on, but hopefully we're working together on this and we can find some solutions. So thank you again for the answer, Commissioner Kessler.
And Commissioner Kessler, just to clarify before I go to Representative Fisher, the LCCMR project that you referenced is in the 2020 bill, is that correct? So if we are not completed with that, it's not signed into law by June 30th, those funds would go back to the corpus and that project would be done. Would not happen. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, yes, it is in the 2020 bill.
Thank you. Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is picking up on the PFAS issue, particularly around wastewater. Representative Heinzman hit some of my questions, but where I wanted to dive a little bit further in is the some of the comments that were made by some other folks at the MPCA about going upstream. It seems that wastewater basically has it all coming into them, and it's a pass-through type situation. And I heard some reference to we need to be going upstream. What are some of the example of things that are being done or have to be done to go upstream to find out how do we prevent it from getting into the future? And what does that mean in cost? What are the tools that we need to be providing you? And do we have all those tools in the bill that we have before us?
Commissioner Kessler.
Chair Hansen and Representative Fisher, thank you for the question. You are right in your characterization that the PFAS comes to the wastewater treatment plant. It is not something that they are producing there, and it is passed through if it can't be broken down. And we know that they are slippery as characterized by Assistant Commissioner Kudelka. And so the treatment that often you'll see in municipal wastewater treatment plants are not designed to break these things down. So what we need to do to identify sources is to do characterization sampling at the influent point, so where the wastewater is coming into the facility as well as where is it coming out of the facility. And then the way that physical, chemical, biological processes work in wastewater is that a biosolid is produced. That's the bugs that eat up the waste and then ultimately get recycled. And when they can't be recycled anymore, that's a resource that can be land applied for nutrients and soil health. And so we're sampling at the influent point, the effluent point, and we're sampling at the biosolids to understand where it is moving in the treatment plant. And when you find it at high levels at the influent, you need to understand where it might be coming from into the treatment plant. And so we have at the MPCA a delegated program called the Significant Industrial User Program. This comes from the EPA, and it says, if you are a community and you have things like plating or industries that may use PFAS to provide lubrication in their manufacturing process, you would have to have them report that to you. And through your Significant Industrial User Program at your facility, which the MPCA oversees, you would then work with those individual contributors of waste to your wastewater plant to do things like look at what are the chemicals that they're using in their process, because it may not be called out as this is the PFAS chemical. It may be something else that includes PFAS. So you have to do some detective work and look at where those individual contributors might be coming from, and then look at, are there alternatives that you can use in manufacturing or in commercial use upstream that don't contain PFAS. And we have examples of where this has occurred successfully in Minnesota as well as in other states, where they've really honed in on that significant industrial user, or called pre-treatment, like what can you do prior to sending the wastewater to the facility to minimize the sources. by identifying industrial sources and then replacing them or removing them from the chain. And in many cases, other states have found that and we have found this in some instances in Minnesota, when you are able to do that successfully, you're able to reduce the amount of PFAS that's coming into the treatment plant, again, that influent sample, so that you don't see it in the effluent and the biosolids at problematic levels. And to the last point of your question, the governor's budget does include money to do this work, to provide resources to wastewater plants to do this investigative upstream type of efforts. And it not only would fund work at wastewater plants, but I believe there is also a proposal to look at sources to compost and landfills as well. And because we know that wastewater is not the only conduit that is bringing PFAS into the environment, and that we need to be attacking this head on all facets.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Kessler, for that explanation. And on the pre-treatment, when a wastewater plant does these pre-treatment type things, is that similar to the program that they've used in the past for, like when they were dealing with PCBs and those heavy metals, that if they're able to remove it upstream, that's considered being the effective treatment process that helps the wastewater facilities address the issues as they're dealing with it then?
Commissioner Kessler.
Chair Hansen and Representative Fisher, yes, that is similar to how we would deal with PCBs, because it's really a replace and remove example. And I will just add that I noted that we've done this in Minnesota, that in Brainerd 10 plus years ago, they were finding PFAS. We found PFAS with that community in their effluent, and we did this exact type of effort and found the source to be a metal plating company upstream, and they were able to remove that from their process or treat that such that it wasn't coming to the facility anymore. Brainerd did upgrade their wastewater treatment plant such that they now have very advanced membrane type of treatment there that removes PFAS as well as other things. So that's a benefit to the environment overall. But a lot of work was done to identify the source and minimize it. So similar to PCBs, we have that experience in Minnesota for PFAS as well.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Kessler. And with the money that the governor was asking for to start the process, is this a process that would be able to be done with the funds that are being requested within a year or two, or is this something that is going to have to be funded and may take 10 years before we figure this out? And I'm asking from the fact of, this is a very important issue. This is a large contaminant, and the quicker we can identify to get this out of the environment, the better off we're going to be. So are the resources being asked for enough to be able to address it in the short term, or is it going to take a lot longer time?
Commissioner Kessler.
Chair Hansen and Representative Fisher, thanks for the question. We think this is a really critical jumpstart point, and we think that we will be able to strategically look at, based on where we know there are industries in a community, to target the size of facilities and the types of facilities where you might see the higher levels. And again, this is an example where we're going to learn from others who are also doing this in other states and look at where we're most likely to find it first and try to minimize in those locations. So I don't think it's fair to say that we would, within 2 years, have it eliminated from all wastewater facilities and done this exhaustive investigative work, but it will help immensely in making that progress. And when we learn from one community, we can apply to the next community so that our efficiency in the use of the dollars will improve.
Representative Fisher, I'd like to move on to Representative Morrison, if possible. Representative Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this is more of a comment. I appreciated Assistant Commissioner Kessler's remarks. The plan to stave it off upstream, as I think the way she put it, prevent, manage, then treat, makes me think about medicine. Prevention is always preferable to treatment. And the adage of first, do no harm has to apply in our environment as well. And I'm thinking about food packaging specifically, I guess. Of course, we have to work with industry, but ultimately this is about people. And most people in industry that I know don't want to do harm either. And we need to work in partnership in order to protect people from unintended consequences in most cases. But this is an all hands on deck moment. This is a very frightening problem that we are facing with these forever chemicals. And it strikes me that we have a real opportunity to get these LCCMR bills done and be able to proceed with research like the one around PFAS. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
I think that was more of a comment, Representative Morrison. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the conversation here. Commissioner Kessler, just a real quick question, if I might, with regards to your thoughts on incinerating versus landfilling. Can you give me some comments on that, or what the research has been done on that? I don't remember anybody talking about that.
Commissioner Kessler.
Chair Hansen and Senator Ingebrigtsen, thanks for the question. We do know that incineration at high temperatures do destroy PFAS. And when I say that, everything about PFAS is dynamic in that they're making new PFAS every day. So the research to date show that most PFAS are destroyed at, if you get your incineration point high enough in temperature. Incineration is not an option everywhere. And there's still questions about air emissions and air sampling that we are following in the research, but we do know that that is one way that PFAS can be destroyed. But it is something that is not an option in every municipal location, for example.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Mr. Chair, follow-up. Thank you. So what has your research found? I know we don't have incinerators all over the state of Minnesota. However, this constantly putting things into the landfills it just doesn't seem to make sense to the, with our water. And yeah, we can argue all day about what kind of bathtubs we put them in, and all the juice that we actually pull out of those bathtubs, and how long are they going to last? And with Minnesota freezing and the frost shifting, and I'm getting a little off base here, but what is some of the research that you've found with regards to reducing PFAS with incineration? You said you were starting to look into that, or have you got a fair amount of work done on that?
Commissioner Kessler.
Chair Hansen and Senator Ingebrigtsen, thanks for that question. I'm going to ask my colleague, Assistant Commissioner Kudelka, to take that question.
Commissioner Kudelka.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. That is something that EPA is doing more research on. We do know it can be destroyed at very high temperatures. There's some questions about whether all facilities can get up to those temperatures, whether that may only be able to be received or done at hazardous waste incineration, or for instance, lower temperatures at waste energy facilities. So it's something we're still looking at. As Assistant Commissioner Kessler mentioned, we do know of air deposition in certain circumstances. I know the state of New York, for instance, is doing a study right now on this, and EPA is looking to do some more information to get data on it. EPA did send out some very preliminary guidance, for instance, on how to handle this PFAS destruction and storage at this point, really targeted to firefighting foam and the like. And that's part of their questions too, is to fully understand if it is completely destroyed in the incineration process. Right now, some of their recommendation is to be able to hold on to it until additional study can be done to determine what of the two disposal options we have right now, landfilling or incineration, is the best and most effective.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and for indulging it. There was mention of my Commissioner Kessler about the metal plating in Brainerd. I actually toured that facility, and I'm not sure if it was LCCMR or if it was bonding. I think it must have been LCCMR. That was quite a place, really. And yes, there were a lot of chemicals involved there. And you know, when you first walk into that, you have to wonder, how are they disposing of this? And apparently they were able to come up with some way of doing that, or not using the substances that they have to have for metal plating, which is for all these old refurbished cars. It was just quite an amazing plant. I didn't realize it was that close to me in Minnesota. So yeah, there are some ways to do this, and I found that interesting that they did respond to that, and that was good. With regards to composting, now, Mr. Kudelka, you know that our composting program and the waste recovery systems throughout the state are doing a pretty good job. I know they are in my district. There's a huge thing for, push for composting, and I think they're doing an excellent job at the Pope Douglas one in particular. But there needs to be more work on that. I understand that, and again, it was mentioned that it was in the LCCMR bill. I'm hoping as well that we're able to get through that within the next couple of days. But I have no doubt that we will. And that's a great place for the appropriation is through LCCMR, and we'll move forward with that. I'm pretty sure once we get our targets. So thank you.
I have a follow-up question from on Senator Ingebrigtsen's line of questioning. PCA members had mentioned high temperatures. So exactly how high? What are we talking about in terms of temperature at a hazardous waste facility like the Sargé, Illinois one, and then how does that compare to a municipal solid waste incinerator, the temperatures generated there, and then an open fire, the famous backyard burn barrels, what's the temperature there?
Mr. Chair and committee members, I could start off on that. The background, backyard burn barrels are not doing it. We are still looking, we can get you the information on what we know today. Part of the research what EPA is doing is to confirm some of those assumptions that we have today, but you're right, it is very high levels of incineration of hazardous waste facilities and the like that we're looking at, but we'll need to get you the direct temperature on that. We can get that to you as soon as possible.
And then a question following up on the prevention side. So let's say a human being comes in contact with PFAS. Let's say it's in a liquid format. Who knows what the concentration is? Is it, you said it's slippery. Is it absorbent through the skin? Is it inhalation? Is it food consumption? Is it coming, is it digestive? Is it dermal? Or is it inhalation, respiratory, where it seems that we're getting the most contact, and what are those threats?
Mr. Chair and committee members, the Department of Health, and we rely greatly on their work there. But what we've really been targeting on is drinking water, direct ingestion of it is our number one source. One of the items mentioned in the Minnesota PFAS blueprint is additional study on inhalation. And that's something the Department of Health and MPCA are doing today to get more information there. But our biggest understanding today is when it's through drinking water is the largest source, or other types of consumption. At this point, do not believe there's the skin contact is a source. I know when we've been looking at, for instance, foam in waters that have elevated levels of PFAS, we still recommend folks to stay out of it, but don't believe that is a major pathway. The largest pathway, again, going back to contamination of drinking water and the like. And also fish consumption. I mean, that's another one why we have in our bill here, and the House has in their bill, additional dollars to sample for fish. Just like we do for mercury and PCBs that were mentioned earlier, we need that statewide data to look at, to make sure that we can make proper advice to anglers in the state about fish consumption. There are a couple lakes in the East Metro at this point where we have advisories where it's not to eat any of the fish in that lake because of PFAS contamination.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and follow up. Mr. Chair, do you have anybody from the Department of Health here to comment on the water consumption portion here? I don't know if you do.
Ingebrigtsen, I don't think we have health. I think they may be over in the Health and Human Services conference, but I don't think that starts till 11, but I think we could, Commissioner Kudelka, if we can get that information for the conference committee, if we don't have somebody available right now. Senator Ingebrigtsen?
Yeah, I would like to see that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And it seems, food packaging, if you have contact with PFAS with food, that ingestion might be something we should be very concerned about. And it is preventable, as Representative Morrison had discussed. I think, any other questions on PFAS? Next up, the water gremlin notification questions. Representative Wozlawik or Representative Fisher, who is going to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can start with some questions, and then if Representative Fisher has more, he can jump in on that. I think I wanted to sort of talk through, I know I've had conversations with PCA staff and constituents as we've been working through all of the water gremlin stuff, which is still not completely resolved because they're working on a new permit for them because they've made some changes to the facility and the way they do things. But wanted to just sort of highlight a few things and talk through a few things that that are in the bill that are sort of in response to what happened at Water Gremlin. And one of those is the provision to require the agency to have public meetings before they finalize a stipulation agreement with certain facilities. And that was largely driven by what happened with Water Gremlin, in that the stipulation agreement was finalized really quickly, which is a good thing, but the issue was that the community didn't have a lot of input in that and wanted more of that. So wanted to highlight that, but also ask a few questions to sort of get at what exactly is in the House version of the bill that might address either, prevention. As we've talked about, prevention is sort of the most important piece. How do we prevent a situation like what happened with Water Gremlin from happening? And then if we do have that happen, if an unfortunate situation does happen like that, what do we do to try and deter it from happening again? So I don't know if Ms. Gauthier, if you can talk a little bit about some of the things that are in the House version of the bill specifically that sort of try to tackle that issue.
And Representative Wozlawik, do you have a page number, an R number for?
I think, let me look here. I did write it down. I believe it's R71 is where it starts.
Ms. Goff?
Yeah, R71 in my spreadsheet, R71 is where some of it starts, and that's I think the first thing I see there is the about settlement, the stipulation agreements. I believe there's a piece there, and then several pages after that have other provisions related to this issue as well.
Ms. Gauthier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Wozlawik, for that question. Yes, we did sit down after and during, because it's still ongoing, our enforcement action at Water Gremlin, and looked at, what kinds of things would have helped us to move quicker and to do more. And also, having Water Gremlin come on the heels of Northern Metals, we also wanted to look at some of the, how can we do a better job of signaling to the regulated community, given the structure that we have under the Federal Clean Air Act, signaling to them about things that are not acceptable. I don't know, I see the commissioner has jumped on. I don't know if you want to jump in, Laura.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in, Mr. Chair.
Welcome, Commissioner Bishop and
Great.
Water Gremlin.
Thank you. Laura Bishop, Commissioner of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and Representative Wozlawik, thank you for your questions. And I will say, from the start, this this landed on my desk the first week that I started, as you are well aware. And from the start, that was really my intent, is what happened? Where did things go wrong in the process? And what do we need to do to correct this? So we did our own internal study on that, as well as participated with the Office of Legislative Auditor very extensively to really understand that process. The fortunate part about the Legislative Auditor report, and I think that you'll understand this because we worked so closely with the community and explained kind of our findings all the way around, that there weren't really any surprises in their report, but there were lapses. We needed to do more and to be able to have the right people in place, the right equipment in place, and ways that we could hold our regulated parties accountable so that this can't happen again. And those are the pieces that we're still trying to build on. So when you see the legislation with the air appropriations and with our people, really that is to help catch these things before they become a problem. While we want to hold our regulated community accountable, we really want to make sure that our regulated communities feel safe coming to us, and that when there are problems, and that they aren't 20-year problems that they're coming to us with, that they're right immediate problems that we can solve together before they become a crisis, which clearly Water Gremlin scenario was a crisis, and we can't have that type of situation going forward. So that's why we're looking at what we are for the appropriations, as well as the language in the environmental justice language and policy language that we have proposed, and the House has considered as well, more extensively than what the governor has proposed. But I think it really does a good job of being able to work with our communities, catch these things early, and correct them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Follow-up, Representative Wisław.
Mr. Chair, I think it would still be helpful for Ms. Gauthier to walk through a couple of those things. I know Commissioner Bishop mentioned the air appropriation, the increase for the staff and the testing equipment. I think those are both things that I was excited to see, because as others have mentioned, this isn't just a Water Gremlin, my community issue. There are concerns in other communities. Northern Meadows was mentioned, and that continues to be a concern as well for a couple of members who are on our Environment and Natural Resources Committee who represent those communities. So Ms. Gauthier, if you could just sort of talk about a few of the other provisions, the things that the agency has looked at and the community has talked about and I've talked about that sort of address some of the specifics with Water Gremlin, but I think also might serve to deter sort of folks who are facilities who are maybe not following the rules exactly as they should. If you could talk a little bit about a few of those provisions, I think that would be helpful to understand what we're trying to do to hold people accountable and make sure this doesn't happen again.
And Ms. Gauthier, we're on R 71, 72, 73, 74, 75.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, and thank you for the question, Representative Wasilwick. One of the things we heard very clearly from community members in both Northern Meadows and Water Gremlin was that they wanted us to move faster. So currently, under our current structure of laws and rules, the commissioner can step in to either have a public hearing or do other procedural things quicker if we can see that there is imminent danger to the community from whatever the violation is, and or that there is a strong potential for civil unrest from a situation at a facility. And so that was what we saw in Water Gremlin. And we did step in and hold a public meeting to bring people together. I think it was, I don't remember the date, but it was in the middle part of February. And the commissioner shut them down for the first time in the middle part of January. roughly about 2 weeks after she started, not even 2 weeks after she started. So it, because we have that process now where we have to determine, and yes, there is imminent danger to the community, or yes, there's imminent situation where there could be civil unrest. A lot of people in the community, as you know, Representative Wasilwick and Representative Fisher, were very concerned and very upset by what was happening. And so we had that public meeting, but we weren't able to do that, as quickly as the community wanted. And so one of the things that is located in this bill, and we do this in 2 places in the bill, once in Chapter 115 and once in Chapter 116, because our water permits are mostly in Chapter 115. The rest of our permits are under Chapter 116, is we give the commissioner clarify that she has the authority to reopen permits when there is a situation like this. So for example, on page R72, on line 134.19, you'll see that under the general authority of the commissioner in Chapter 115.03, she has the ability to, to administer and enforce the laws and investigate and the extent and character of pollution, and establish standards and encourage waste treatment and so forth. And then at 134.19, it says to adopt, issue, reissue, modify, deny, or revoke is what it says now, but we would add deny, revoke, reopen, or enter into. So just that one word, reopen, clarifies that the commissioner can in fact reopen a permit before the expiration of the permit occurs. Most of our permits are usually 5 years or 10 years. So you can see how if it's a 5-year permit and there's an incident in year 1, we don't want to wait till year 4 or have to cross the threshold of having imminent danger to the community and civil unrest. So we heard loud and clear from the community and the citizens that that's what they wanted. So we did that there in R72. And then that is also, Mr. Chairman and members, in chapters 116, we did that on page R123, on line 167.1. And it's similar language. It's just a different chapter. It says again, the commissioner has the authority to adopt, issue, modify, deny permits, but we add the word there, reopen permits. And again, she has that authority now, but this removes some of the conditions that have to be met and would allow the agency to work quicker in the future. So that's one example of how we really tried. We looked at what happened at Water Gremlin and said, how could we have responded better in a way that Minnesotans were asking us to? And this was one of the ways that we thought was fundamental, was that if the commissioner can reopen the permit, then that removes some administrative and paperwork barriers that, and other things that we would have to do first. So, that's one example. Without going into lots of detail, I would say another example that we learned from Water Gremlin is that on page R74, we look at the cost of us responding in these violation situations. And so what this says is that, if there's a situation when we have a negotiated settlement and we have to respond, as we said, Representative Wasilwick, we are still responding and we are still working with Water Gremlin and towards the process of redoing their permit. And it has been 2 years now, coming on 2.5. So, the fact that our people have had to do that means that there's other work they have not been able to do because we have increased the number of people. We're asking for 3 more people in our air section, as Commissioner Bishop noted. So what this section says is that if we get to a point where we are spending more than $25,000 to enforce on a violation of a negotiated, when we're in a negotiated settlement, then the permittee has to reimburse us for the additional funds we've spent, because it's not fair to other Minnesotans and other agencies who are doing, or other entities that are doing the right thing, that we have to sacrifice staff time, to work on this violation when we cannot be doing our regular work. So, and that is meant as a kind of an incentive for the future. It's not retroactive, but looking ahead to be very clear. And by and large, the vast majority of permittees comply with their limits, do the right thing, and so forth. But just again, clarifying in statute that this is the consequence for a situation like this in the future, just so that it's very clear and that there is that clarity in statute. Mr. Chairman and Representative Wasilewicz, on page 1R127, there is language there that we put in, and this is related to the commissioner's emergency powers that currently exist in statute. So under on page R127, if you look at line 170.29, you'll see the existing emergency powers there, and that's where you see if there's imminent and substantial danger to health and welfare of the people of the state and so forth. That's where what I mentioned earlier. What we do is down on 171.9 is we add a new section about, are there other cases in which the commissioner might need emergency authority? And one of those is to take action against, as you see on 171.13, a permittee with a history of non-compliance, chronic and substantial permit violations, or the case of Northern Metals falsification of records. So making it clear that those things will allow, if those things happen in the future, it's not retroactive, that the commissioner can move quickly to exercise emergency authority. Mr. Terrell, those are basically the essence of those are the critical pieces.
Thank you. Representative Lau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Gauthier, for that. And I will also point out on page R77, there's a few more things too that are similar in what they're addressing, but a few of those things also came out, I think, of the conversations around water gremlin, the compliance when required when a permit has not been obtained. I know that was a concern with water gremlin that came out in the OLA report. And then a few other things that sort of came up in the conversations with the facility. So thank you, Ms. Gauthier, for going through those. I think it's just wanted to highlight some of the things that we're trying to do to address what happened and try to prevent it from happening again. And if it does happen, to really have a better way of responding to it, so that we're not, we can, the agency can respond faster and try to, protect the community and the public health and ensure that, we can act quickly so that we're not further harming the community. And I do want to say too that I had a conversation with staff from the MPCA about what they've done internally to address the concerns that came up in the OLA report. And that was something that I found to be incredibly helpful as well in terms of how they've done things differently so that we can catch things and prevent them from happening again. So thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
Representative Fisher and then Representative Heinzman. Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this will be to Ms. Gauthier. And thank you for going over all these sections that were out there that were addressing the water gremlin issue. The questions that I had come up is when taking a look at being able to have the extra fees for when the costs go over $25,000. Right now, when the agency is doing this kind of work on these agreements, who takes care of paying for it? Is that being done by general fund dollars? Is it coming out of one of the permitting funds? How is that funded for right now?
Ms. Gauthier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the majority of the work that we were doing there, I'm going to ask if my colleague, Assistant Commissioner Craig McDonnell, who is has expertise on our air policy and air administration of how we do that, I would ask if he could address that question, please.
Welcome, Mr. McDonald. If you could introduce yourself for the record.
Craig McDonald, Assistant Commissioner for Air and Climate Policy at the PCA. And Mr. Chair and Representative Fisher, to your question, the funding that came out of the funding required was from the Environmental Fund to continue the ongoing oversight of water gremlin. Our compliance and enforcement staff is funded through the Environmental Fund largely, and that is it. So it's Minnesota taxpayers, and it was a significant lift to bring water gremlin back into compliance. As Commissioner Bishop said, we had staff that were dedicating basically an entire year's worth of work on this.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. McDonald, for that information. That is helpful to know. The other thing I know that has been talked about and addressing is that how the air permits are going to be enforced in the future and the extra work that's going to go in there. Are those completely, Assistant Commissioner Gauthier, are those typically paid for through the air permitting fees, and or is that also subsidized by general fund dollars?
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your question, Representative Fisher. I'm going to kick it over to Craig again, but I will say that, you know, our general fund supports very little of our agency's work. I think we're down around 2% now, general fund. So the vast majority is environmental fund for enforcement and compliance. But I think that the air permit fees, as you know, by state and federal law, are required to be set at a level to cover the work that we do to produce and administer those permits. But I'm going to kick it over to Commissioner McDonald.
Commissioner McDonald.
Mr. Chair and Representative Fisher, thank you for the question. As Assistant Commissioner Gauthier pointed out, we are required through state and federal law to cover the cost of our air program, and that considers our regulatory work, so writing permits, air monitoring, as well as the compliance and enforcement piece. And so that is coming out of the Environmental Fund, and it is recouped through our air permit fees as well. So folks emitting that, the good actors who most folks are in compliance for, are subsidizing the cost of our air program. And when we have significant non-compliance, we could see a cost increase across all parties.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. So right now, from what I understand, by law, you folks are able to, if need be, to increase the air permit fees so that you guys, so that the agency is able to do the work to make sure that that people in the environment are safe from, and that the people who've got permits to pollute are staying within those permits, correct?
Commissioner McDonald.
Mr. Chair and Representative Fisher, yes, established in rule is a formula for the agency to recoup its air program fees through a formula that looks at our emissions inventory, looking at a class of emissions, criteria emissions, which are criteria pollutants, not necessarily air toxics, and we do charge fees based on that. We have, ongoing work that is needed there, and sometimes when you have a major case like water gremlin, that's additional cost and burden and pressure just on the agency because of the significant non-compliance in that work there that's not accounted for necessarily in the formula.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. And one of the concerns the reason I was asking this is right now I know that you have the ability to set the fees as needed to make sure that the costs are covered. It sounds like if legislatively we were starting to try to do that, or if you had to come to us for that approval, that feels to me like that could create a problem in being able to carry out these critical programs, or limit people getting their permits on a speedy basis, or limit the ability to make sure that people are complying with their fees or complying with their permits. And is that correct?
Commissioner McDonald.
Mr. Chair and Representative Fisher, that would be correct. We are fortunate through the legislature establishing statute and through the rulemaking process that we have a formula that allows us to recoup our fees for the air program. It's not something all agencies have or all programs have at our agency, but it does conform with federal law as well.
Thank you. Representative Heinzman, and before I go to Representative Heinzman, we did have a question about what exact page and sections each of the water gremlin provisions are. So if after Representative Heinzman, if someone could just go through those, I don't know, Ms. Gauthier, but Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm glad we have some time here today to go through this and to have this conversation. I do want to make sure that we do hear, you know, all parts of this issue as best we can. And one of the important pieces to this, I think, is also making sure, as I hear some of these comments from representatives of the MPCA, that we get some clarification, because thankfully we do have an OLA report, and the OLA report goes through a number of recommendations and problems that you know, we're discussing this morning. And you know, I think I'd probably like to start with Assistant Commissioner Gauthier. One of the comments that was made a few minutes ago was that in reference to the bill and some of the language here, is that this is the consequence, so we avoid situations, referring to water gremlin, like this in the future. You know, and I appreciate that. You know, but even as I open up this OLA report, the very first page in the summary, which I know we've all read, you know, it's quite accusatory. And I'll just read one of the comments here, that MPCA did not respond to water gremlin's application, and the company received its first permit in 2000 only after it submitted another application in 99. Thus, for several years, MPCA simply did not regulate water gremlin's hazardous air emissions. And, you know, as I'm reading that, I'm wondering what the consequences were for MPCA when you simply did not regulate water gremlin. We have a number of really, I think, strong provisions in this bill that in the situations, or in situations maybe where we need more authority, I could understand that, but that's not what this OLA report is saying. It's saying MPCA simply didn't do its job. And I'm trying to understand that comment, that this is the consequences, so we avoid situations in the future, you know, and that's, I'm assuming, referencing the additional powers that MPCA is asking for. Well, if you just didn't do your job, what were the consequences for that? And if Assistant Commissioner could address that, I'd really appreciate it. And I'm going to have further questions as well for probably Commissioner Bishop.
Heinzman, I'd like to actually go to Commissioner Bishop. I think those are direct on the agency, and so Commissioner Bishop.
Sure, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Heinzman, for raising this. Yes, there were lapses. What the OLA report says as well is that the agency has been continuously understaffed. So that is why we're asking for the staff pieces here. What I will say is, since I came in, we have made changes to our team. The leadership in the industrial division and the air manager have both changed. So we have made changes to staff and that division and leadership. And we want to put it in the system so that this won't happen again. The other piece that I would say is the OLA report does specifically note that an air toxics inventory and the mandatory reporting by our regulated entities should have happened. It's been in place in neighboring states and has not been put in place in Minnesota. And that is something that the agency will continue to look at, because that could help to catch much of this. And so you're right, there have been consequences at the agency with this, as well as significant changes made, and hence our proposal too for more staffing and air monitoring, which is before you now.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that answer, Commissioner Bishop. And I would ask that those of us that have the OLA report in front of us go to page 18 because it very specifically speaks to the comments that you were making, Commissioner Bishop, that we cannot say with certainty why MPCA did not act more quickly. It doesn't reference any of the comments and answer that you just provided. It seems very clear that MPCA was more than capable of responding, but we're not sure why. According to the OLA report, MPCA did not act more quickly on Water Gremlin's 1995 application. And then going on, it says, in our view, MPCA must be held accountable for its failure to respond to Water Gremlin's application. And you mentioned a number of changes that have happened in your tenure, which that's fine. I appreciate that. But I don't see any examples of MPCA being held accountable for its failure to respond. And it goes on to talk about how federal regulations were violated during that time. And I'm not laying that at your, I'm not saying that you, Commissioner Bishop, are responsible for that. I'm saying here we are, and we have the same document. I don't see anywhere in here, and maybe I've missed it and somebody could inform me, but I don't see anywhere in here where it's directing MPCA to request more authority in the examples that we're offering today. I see that we need to clearly be holding MPCA accountable. And if there's examples of that that haven't been discussed, I would really appreciate you expanding on that, Commissioner.
Commissioner Bishop.
So what I will say, Mr. Chair and Representative Heinzman, is, it's hard to speculate on the historical back when this happened, but and also, the EPA was aware of how we issued permits as well as prioritized permits. That was set up by the legislature of how to prioritize our permitting. So I understand that there was lapse here that was historical, but I will say that there is also, and what the legislature said is to prioritize our construction permits, new development. So that's what the agency had done. What I will say is it does also say in there, and I don't have the report in front of me with the exact references, but it does say that the agency has been historically understaffed. It also talks about the inventories for air toxics that have been set up in neighboring states and how that could have helped to catch much of this earlier. But those two things are in the report as well. So I appreciate that you want to point fingers at the agency. There's also a very big, issue here where regulated parties have an obligation to report, and Water Gremlin knew what they were doing under their, and that the permit that was in place was not the permit that was permitting the way that they were using their TCE. So they had an obligation to report to the agency. That's what's been set up. And I think we all support this mandatory reporting and by our regulated parties, but they have a responsibility to come to the agency to say, this is not in line with our permit. And that's part of, our system that has been in place. And I think it's the right one, but when people do the wrong thing under their permits like this, they must be held accountable. And we don't want it to go as far as it had, but I think we're on a better path with the provisions that we've put in place in our budget, as well as in policy that would correct this and prevent this from happening in the future.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Commissioner Bishop, to be clear, even though I am giving the OLA report an opportunity to be discussed today, it's the OLA report that's pointing the finger at MPCA and at its failure to respond to Water Gremlin's application for a permit. And it's the OLA report that's suggesting that MPCA needs to be held accountable. And I'm not the commissioner of MPCA, you are. And I'm not sure what action you could be taking to hold the agency accountable, but pointing the finger back at the legislature and saying, well, the legislature didn't provide X amount of employees. Well, I just see no record of MPCA coming to the legislature and saying, we'd like to fix the problems at Water Gremlin, but we need 2 more people. If that were the case, I'm pretty sure people at the legislative level would have responded. You know, and if we're talking about an issue of staffing, well, let's work on that. I don't have any qualm with that. But what we're talking about is the MPCA's request to have broad new powers. And you're specifically asking that if you detect a contaminant that you would be able to come in, and it may even be an unconstitutional rule if it were established, suggesting that we can come in if we detect a contaminant not defined in this language. And you're going to come in and you're going to require a whole host of information, which I think it's important that MPCA has good information. But I do think that you're also overstepping by asking for power as opposed to what is described here in the OLA report in its recommendations. It goes way beyond, your request goes way beyond what we're seeing here in terms of more accountability, following up and actually doing the work that MPCA has been tasked to do. You know, these are some really serious issues. And, you know, I understand you mentioned it's hard to speculate, Commissioner, but I think we have some pretty cold, hard facts right here that we could start from. And, you know, I'm glad you're here today, Commissioner, to, you know, visit with us and share your feelings on what we need to have going forward.
Thank you.
But it appears that we aren't addressing the elephant in the room. And when I ask specific questions like, well, what have we done to follow these recommendations to hold MPCA accountable? Commissioner, that falls at your desk. And I'm not seeing anything that you've mentioned today that you've done to hold the agency accountable. I hear you asking for more power and more authority to come back and to somehow that's going to be the solution. And that's not at all what's here in this report. And I don't understand why not. And so as I'm reading and going through page by page by page, I see example after example after example, and not under your tenure, Commissioner. So I'm not saying this is your issue originally. This is an issue that we are now dealing with in the aftermath and trying to find solutions. And the OLA is highly respected. We should be able to trust their judgment. We have for decades on issues like this. And I just don't see MPCA addressing the concerns and the recommendations made in this report.
Mm-hmm.
I think Representative Heinzman, the elephant in the room got out in 1995.
Yeah.
And it was out for decades. And so I think what's being proposed here are some tools to put it back. And that's really difficult. Commissioner Bishop was not here in 1995. I don't think any of us on this Zoom call were in the legislature in 1995, but I've been here for a while and I've heard years of cutting the general fund and railing on the PCA as the problem for economic development. So I appreciate the interest in making sure that regulations are being followed. The challenge here, I did hear Representative Heinzman that Commissioner Bishop said that 2 people were replaced under her tenure. And that would be, in my understanding, accountability, that people were changed. And so I think these are, we had heard Representative Wozlawik and Representative Fisher talk about the impacts on their community and in other communities.
Mhm.
And what is an attempt here is to have the ability to keep future elephants getting out into the room and make sure that this one's put back. Now, people can disagree with that. People can disagree with the money, but these problems fester when we're not looking, or if we can't look. And so the OLA, I agree, Representative Heinzman, serving on the legislative auditor, does good work. And it is a case study of what happens without action. And that was an epic fail by everybody.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just respond one last item on this. So, Mr. Chair and Representative Heinzman, we did have a full hearing before this committee, before the House committee about the legislative auditor report. And we walked through the changes as well as the recommendations from the legislative auditor. When you mentioned about funding and the MPCA not coming that you remember, well, last biennium we came and we requested 6 additional people for our air. This isn't new power. This is to be able to do our job. And that's what we would like to do. In addition, you know, because we'd had the hearing before, I didn't think it was really the place to go through everything that has happened and that we've done, but I'm happy to do that. I submitted a letter to this committee. We submitted a letter to the legislative auditor report that's included in the report, detailing the process improvements that MPCA has made over the past decade to improve its air quality permitting and compliance and enforcement efforts. For example, the air permitting program now has detailed checklists and a library of permitting related templates to ensure that permits are consistent and robust. In addition to these steps, my team is also implementing newer processes such as having our compliance and enforcement staff review air emissions inventory reports ahead of air quality permit inspections. And since discovering the severity of water gremlins noncompliance in January of 2019, my team has devoted significant resources to holding water gremlin accountable for its past noncompliance and to developing rigorous parameters for water gremlins operations. This work has been primarily conducted by our industrial division and is being led by individuals and new leaders in that division, as I noted. And in the spring and summer of 2020, the industrial division welcomed those new leaders for that division. So I appreciate that you are supportive of us doing our job, as well as the opportunity to come before you to ask for those additional resources as we did last biennium and as we are doing now. Thank you.
Representative Heinzman. I think you're muted, Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Commissioner Bishop, I'm glad you brought up a few of those changes at the agency. I appreciate that. I think where we're having a disconnect is because of a number of the comments that have been made as questions have come up today, and that's why I quoted, at least paraphrased as best I could. I was jotting notes, and that triggered a few critical comments, because I don't feel like the responses that we're hearing today as members of this conference committee are asking what happened, relative to water gremlin, what are the solutions. I'm really frustrated because I feel like, as was laid out in the OLA report, there were some pretty specific recommendations, and I don't hear MPCA asking for those recommendations to be addressed. And I haven't heard some of the responses that I would hope for. And I'm glad we had the opportunity earlier in a committee to go over the OLA report. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. And some of the challenges there, the limited time. And since we have some today and these issues were coming forward, that's why I brought up this report and the information there and the failures of MPCA to respond to the request for a air permit. And I hope that we're driving closer to some solutions. And I think through this process, we're making some headway. But I'm still frustrated by some of the comments, like I said at the beginning, that I'm hearing from members of the representation of MPCA today.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Come on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I see Representative Fisher has his hand raised, and I know the work that he did with Water Gremlin, and I'm absorbing more and more about this. So I'd like to have him make comments first before me, if that's fine. If he wants to, I would yield to him if that works.
Yep, Representative Fisher, and then after him, I want to make sure we all are literally on the same pages so that we can look on in the bill before I go to Senator Ingebrigtsen back again. So Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. And I want to say thank you to the Commissioner for being here today and helping us with the OLA report. I think one of the things that I had picked up as I was reading the report was on pages 26 and 27, where it was specifically addressing the backlog. And when you take a look at the history that was being done back then, the people that were still here from that era that were talked to, it came down to an underfunding problem. And when I take a look at underfunding problem, while I acknowledge that as the Commissioner has, that the MPCA had some errors and they've taken action, part of it also reflects onto responsibilities that we have as legislature to make sure that we're making sure that they're getting the resources or providing the tools to get the resources to make sure that they can carry out the actions that they need to make sure things happen in a timely manner and to protect the environment. And while the OLA did not make specific recommendations on because it was outside the scope, as I read it, it feels like that part of that responsibility comes back toward the legislature and also going back to the administrations. I think we need to remember back in the 90s, the way that the MPCA, and this is just as an outsider looking in, the outsider message that I was hearing is that the MPCA was being criticized quite a bit for being too hard on business. And I think that's one of the consequences we have to be aware of, is that people are saying we've got to be more business friendly, make it more easier for them to get through the process. Don't be so hard on the people out there. Part of it is because we've got a lot of good businesses out there doing the right thing. But I think the unintended consequences was that there are bad actors out there that were able to fly under the radar because the agency was starved. They were not able to properly deal with it. And people were at the time feeling that the MPCA was the bad guy and not the people that were being regulated. And I think part of the problem goes back to that time when you've got administrations with that philosophy, appointing people to run the agencies with the same philosophy. I think what we see are the outcome of some of those philosophies being implemented. And I think that's what part of the failure is here, is not where we were now, but where we were back then and how we were approaching it and how we were demonizing what the agency was trying to do when they're charged with protecting the environment.
Senator Ingebrigtsen, Representative Lowick also represents kind of that area. Would you like to
go ahead,
comment before you close or before you, Representative Lowick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just wanted to chime in a little bit here. I think we're sort of losing focus on the things that are in the bill, but I do want to say that there were 4 recommendations made by the OLA, and folks can read those. And I know that those pieces have been addressed or are being addressed right now. I know the hazardous waste piece is something that I've talked about with county commissioners in that process. So just want to point that out, that the actual recommendations are written there, and there are 4 of them, and they are things that have been worked on. So I want to bring that up. But I also want to point out, I think it's really important to note that, we have an opportunity here to really make a difference in terms of, getting the agency more staff so that they're able to continue the work that they're doing. So they're able to continue to process. I can't remember the exact number, but the amount of permits that the agency has to deal with on a regular basis is pretty high, and wanting to make sure that they have the staff that they need to be able to do that, as well as working on the enforcement side and making sure that they can do that work as well. I think that's a really important piece. We have a chance here. Senator Chamberlain and I worked in a bipartisan manner in the past couple of years when this issue came up with water gremlin, to get some good work done, to put forward some good proposals. One was the TCE ban that we both championed and got passed in 2020. And I think this is another opportunity for us to come together in a bipartisan way to really make sure that we are, one, holding polluters accountable, but also doing what we can to try and deter them from not following the rules in the first place. So just want to throw that out there, that this is an opportunity to continue to do that work that we started and that we did in a bipartisan fashion in the past couple of years.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you very much for the comments from the representatives, and I certainly appreciate that, knowing the bipartisanship between the Senate and the House when we were talking about water gremlin. And that was very clear that there was an issue there. It's also very clear that this issue was not discovered in a timely fashion. I've heard some comments today that are somewhat concerning to me, and Commissioner, I'll address the comments to you or the questions to you. And thank you, by the way, for being here. You said when you came in, this was on your desk, and I get that. I understand when you have new commissioners coming forward. I did work with the Commissioner Linkstein under the Dayton administration, and I don't recall them bringing up anything about water gremlin at that time, and obviously it was either overlooked by staff or whatever. But I don't remember a huge push for more staff. I think we probably deal with that fairly regular throughout all state government, but I guess we can lay blame on everybody, and I'm not going to do that. But I would like to talk about a couple of things. You said you had reassigned people. What if you reassign somebody to in your office? Is that what you do? Is you just put these people that weren't doing their job, reassign them to someplace else? Can you help me with that? Yeah, I'll ask you that question first, and we'll go from there.
Commissioner Bishop.
Sure. Mr. Chair and Senator Ingebrigtsen. So no, the two people that in the leadership, when I said those individuals have left the agency.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't hear that. They have left. Is that correct?
The leadership within that is no longer with the agency.
Okay.
We have new leadership.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And I was quite concerned about, I believe it was Assistant Commissioner Gauthier talking about civil unrest. That's kind of a touchy word to be bringing up when we're talking about these kinds of issues, and to try and avoid civil unrest and having these meetings. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, or maybe Ms. Gauthier can elaborate on, was there any talk about civil unrest at all, or is that just something we're throwing out?
Oh,
Commissioner Bishop.
Mr. Chair and Senator Ingebrigtsen, no, those are the terms that are in either statute or rule about when we would call a meeting. And so, or have a special circumstance, and maybe Assistant Commissioner McDonald can talk about that, but those are that's specific wording that's in statute. So Assistant Commissioner McDonald can address that maybe specific.
Thank you.
Commissioner McDonald.
Mr. Chair and Chair Ingebrigtsen, thank you for the question. So that language refers to when the agency can share non-public data, right? And at that point in time, when this initially broke in January and through February, it was still an open investigation. So the agency is limited with what they can share. However, there is opportunity to share non-public civil investigative data under 3 circumstances. And this is part of, I believe, the Minnesota Data Practices Act. And it has to do if it will aid law enforcement or the law enforcement process, promote public health or safety, or dispel widespread rumor or unrest.
Oh.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Mr. Chair, thank you. That clears it up. I as you can about imagine, we're civil unrest is kind of one of those things that is certainly been talked about and is on everybody's mind right now. And I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you. Again, Chair Hansen, we are talking about 2 things basically that when you talk about PFAS and water gremlin, they have not been involved in any of your offers so far.
Senator Ingebrigtsen, we wanted to make sure we got all the questions answered on them out in the open. So they're very important for us. You heard Representative Wozlawik talk about her working with Senator Chamberlain, the water gremlin piece. So, if the PCA could actually cite the pages, so we literally are on the same page, Senator Ingebrigtsen, I think that would help us see where they're at. Maybe if we want to refer to our spreadsheets. I know that Representative Fisher had to leave because Human Services is starting, but if maybe staff could do that. And they're big issues and very important for us. And I think we share those concerns in both the House and the Senate. But if we could get someone to actually cite the page and line or the pages for us.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Ingebrigtsen?
Yeah, we're fine with that. We've got research that can find that for us, but I just wanted to make it clear it's not been involved in your offer back to the Senate. So thank you. Yes, and we are concerned about this. We should be, and the Senate certainly is as well. So thank you.
They're not in our offers yet, Senator Ingebrigtsen, and if you want to make an offer with them, we'd be happy to consider that. Representative Heinzman. Are you on a next subject? Representative Heinzman?
Just trying to get to the buttons here on the screen. Unfortunately, the taskbar pops up and covers the mute button. I'm sure you've experienced that. Would this be a good time to ask about the Sandhill Cranes issue? I think the pages were R39-R42, if I'm correct.
Yes, I think we've talked about water gremlin and have that information. So, and Senator Ingebrigtsen, this is a Senate provision. So, Representative Heinzman, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just paging through the side-by-sides and wanted to get a little more background on that. And if someone could speak to it, I'd appreciate the clarifications.
Senator Ingebrigtsen. Or Mr. Stanley,
And I'll just repeat, Mr. Chair, it's R39-R42, I believe, is the page areas. So maybe if Mr. Stanley could walk through that, that would be helpful.
Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, good morning. Ben Stanley, Senate Committee Counsel. I believe the language that Representative Heinzman is asking about was part of the governor's environment bill, and the language on, I think the first section you're asking about is Senate Section 56 on R39. This fee that is charged for the Sandhill Crane, the $3 there, this is a fee that the agency's actually already charging. They're just doing it under some different authority. And so this is one of 4 sections that are in the Senate bill that sort of put the authority to charge these fees that DNR is already charging in the proper statutory place. Really? So it's not a new fee. It's already being charged. This is sort of a cleanup in the sense that it puts it where it needs to go.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That helps. Thank you, Mr. Stanley, for the clarification.
And Senator Ingebrigtsen, that's a Senate only provision.
Mr. Chair, I believe it is.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Representative Heinzman, anything else on that one?
Nope, that'll do it for now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Morrison.
Mr. Chair, my hand was not up, sorry.
I thought you had a question about environmental justice.
Oh, it's Mr. Chair, I apologize. I really wanted to point.
My memory told me that, so.
Mr. Chair, I believe that's a leading question.
It was a memory question there, so.
Yes, right. I wanted to point out, first of all, just the provisions that put environmental justice in statute, and then some of the things that are included on the House side. There's an incredible article in the New York Times, I believe it was on April 28th, written about pollution and how it impacts communities of color in the United States compared to their white counterparts. And it is a stunning expose. And this is information that has been known for years, but the evidence has been growing. And this article is a must read for everyone. It showed that people of color breathe more hazardous air compared to white people everywhere across the country, and literally across thousands of categories of pollution, including industry, agriculture, all manner of vehicles, construction, residential sources, and even restaurants. This is environmental justice. It's the definition of, and it's why we need to put it in statute and why we need to start acting on it. On pages R79, I believe, is where it is placed in statute. And it's worth reading. It's worth reading what the definition of environmental justice is and how it needs to be addressed. And I hope that we can have some vigorous conversation about this. And I hope that our Senate conferees will join us in enshrining this in Minnesota statute so that we can create a more just and cleaner and healthier Minnesota.
Commissioner Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I absolutely agree with Representative Morrison on this. We have read the New York Times article, but in addition, we see our own data. And I think we've said this in previous testimony, but 93% of those of our BIPOC communities here in Minnesota live in areas where the air pollution is over the health-based values. So it's a real problem, and that's part of what we're seeking to address and why I have prioritized really air and climate as main priorities here since I've come into this position. So we think this with environmental justice and the language that's there and what we're really trying to do. And I think our federal counterparts agree with this as well. But it's unfortunate here in Minnesota where, you know, we do have clean air, but not in those areas where our communities of color live and reside. And it's more than unfortunate. I think it's actually just devastating, and we should all have these similar concerns.
Representative Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. You know, to state it directly, unfortunately, I think the truth is that we have been practicing environmental racism across the country, and unfortunately, Minnesota is no exception. And it comes back in part to the issue around clean cars, because transportation, we know, is the #1 producer of greenhouse gas emissions right now. And so we need to start addressing this yesterday, certainly not in 2 years, as soon as possible, because this is a matter of, as it is well stated, environmental justice.
Commissioner Bishop, as a follow-up, I'm just looking on page 1 of the policy provisions, and I think it was Representative Lee, the use of the PCA settlement money in affected communities as an effort to provide support for environmental justice. Could you maybe just talk a little bit? I think it's on R2 and 3, Article 4, 1, in the House position, the use of settlement money in affected communities, and just is the agency supportive of that? And have you worked with Representative Lee? And just any impressions on that?
So, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, what I can say is, that is a provision that we've talked extensively with Representative Lee about, and continue to evaluate how we can bring the communities into kind of that process with the settlement money, and so that we can ensure to get their input into those processes. But that was not part of our proposal, but it's certainly something that we continue to talk to Representative Lee about. And want to consider. I mean, those are all things that, we've heard extensively. We have certain provisions that limit us from being able to discuss these terms. So that's why statutory clarification may be necessary in those cases.
Did we lose Senator Ingebrigtsen? Oh, there he is. He's back.
Yeah, thank you.
I just thought maybe it had lost connection there, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Yeah, and I do have some comments or questions when the commissioner's done. Thank you.
Okay. And I wanted Commissioner Stroman to describe their views on environmental justice as well. Commissioner Stroman, if you're here.
Mr. Chair, just one moment. I have to fix my video again. There we go. Good morning, Chair Hansen, Chair Ingebrigtsen, Conference Committee, Sarah Stroman, Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. And I would agree with my colleague, Commissioner Bishop, that environmental justice and equity is an issue that is important to our agency as well at the DNR. Our work has a little bit of a different nature from the clean air and clean water work that Commissioner Bishop talked about, but nevertheless, the ideas of all Minnesotans being able to benefit from nature, from the outdoors, from our environment is extremely important. And I think, as you've heard me say before, one of the things that we've seen over this past year is the incredible benefits that Minnesotans have gotten from spending time outdoors. And we know there is significant research that show the health benefits of spending time in nature, reducing the stress and anxiety by being outdoors. And in fact, there are doctors across the country that are now prescribing time in nature. And so making sure that all Minnesotans have access to those health benefits, equal opportunity to that is something that we're working, not only the physical access, but making sure that our spaces that we manage are welcoming and inclusive to all Minnesotans. So that's one of the things that we're doing. I will just note too, one other provision that was in the governor's recommendations on Clean Water Fund relates to an expansion of our fish contaminant monitoring. And in particular, we had proposed to expand some of that monitoring to look at PFAS in fish. And that also is a really important issue, particularly for populations who engage in subsistence fishing and are regularly eating those fish. The Minnesota Department of Health cannot properly advise Minnesotans on fish consumption advisories if we don't know the contaminant levels. So that's another piece we felt was really important related to our environmental justice and equity work.
Representative Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just re-raising my hand. I'm wondering, I think this is probably for Commissioner Bishop. I think there's often a perception that environmental justice issues are sort of metro-only issues, and I'm just wondering if you could comment about what the impacts of this are around the state.
Commissioner Bishop.
Chair and Representative Morrison, yes, it is often talked about as metro area, or metro concern, but that's just not true. And I think we have a fact sheet as well as data that shows that there's pockets of air quality, and certainly we see it in our waters with mercury contamination in fish populations, and especially up north, and where many of our tribal communities or lower income populations rely on that for a main food source. So this is widespread. It is not just a metro area concern. It is something that we need to be concerned about all over the state.
Representative Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Bishop.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, environmental injustice is statewide. I would like to have you elaborate a little bit more on the rural portion of that. I think you put in there that the dangers of fish consumption, but what other areas of environmental concern would rural Minnesota have that is similar to metro areas?
Commissioner Bishop.
So Chair Hansen and Chair Ingebrigtsen, we see this in pockets of air quality in greater Minnesota. And again, our bill seeks to kind of identify in statute what communities we're talking about. So certainly we know in our rural communities that there are income disparities that exist. And when your air quality is poor or your wells are contaminated, and the affordability of updating those becomes a challenge, we see that often in our rural communities.
Senator Ingebrigtsen. Did you want Senator?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, so what you're talking about is the poor and indigenous and that community with regards to injustice. Would that also include in our rural areas where the majority of the folks out there are not minorities? They're the same, basically the same color as I am. I guess that term shouldn't have to be used, but it's used all the time. Would they be included in this environmental injustice? I can't see an end to the road of what would happen if we put this in statute, Commissioner. Mm-hmm. But would also that include, for instance, in my town we have what's called Sunopta, and there's an odor, obviously a very strong odor. I think of pelican, oh goodness, where they make the candy up there in my my district, as well as dog food. There's a huge odor in that town. So would that be included in the environmental justice statutes moving forward to be able to address that?
Commissioner Bishop.
Mr. Chair and Senator Ingebrigtsen. So I don't know the specifics of that. But if it is causing, health disparities, then it could be. But again, the definitions under environmental justice and what we're looking at for these populations are, our aging populations, our low income populations, and communities of color. So those are, I think clearly, and their access to clean air, clean water, and healthy lands. And so that's what we're looking at for those populations.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
So the rest of the state and the rest of the folks that actually aren't in the poverty-stricken areas or people of color would just be overlooked then, according to this statute.
Commissioner Bishop.
Mr. Chair and Senator Ingebrigtsen, I don't think that those populations are overlooked. This is, really what it says is that it clarifies that environmental justice means communities of color, Indigenous communities, low-income communities, that they also enjoy a healthy environment and fair treatment with respect to the development, adoption, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. So it is, ensuring that those populations have that representation.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Commissioner. And you won't see this on the Senate side because we, well, I don't know what the feeling of all the rest of the members are, but mine is very clear that all of Minnesota should be concerned about this. And putting stuff like this in statute could create a lot of angst down the way here for a future legislature. But again, I've not noticed this in any of the proposals from the House. So, but thank you anyhow for that.
Thank you.
Description.
Senator Ingebrigtsen, it's a high priority for the House. Any other questions for Commissioner Stroman? Did you want to respond?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a lot to add to what my colleague just said, but we would certainly agree that this is not just a metro area. It's a statewide issue. And, again, as we look at access to healthy lands, as Commissioner Bishop called them, that access to nature so that people are getting those health benefits from them, that goes all over the state. And as does the fish consumption and the subsistence fishing. There are communities all over the state who rely on protein, whether it's fish in our lakes or frankly, deer, which we know now have issues with chronic wasting disease. So, we watch those issues to be careful to make sure that those kinds of things are not disproportionately affecting communities who have a history of being disproportionately affected.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Mr. Chair, I can't help but wonder, Commissioner, you mentioned something about the medical field is suggesting folks get out into the clean air and into the parks, for instance, and out in the lakes. I hope it didn't cost anything for a study such as that or a comment such as that, because that's kind of a, kind of a common sense a statement to make. And I certainly would agree with that. And I also don't think that there's an issue stopping anybody from coming out from the metro area to rural Minnesota to enjoy the lakes, waters, and streams and parks. I don't think there's anything prohibiting that. And I don't think this particular statute addresses that. So I'm just really quite lost on what we're trying to accomplish here and put into statute, because putting things into statute is very important. And it can make a big difference. They're easy to put in and not so easy to take out. So those are my final comments. Thanks.
I think, Senator Ingebrigtsen, the issue is that not all of our experiences are common, and not all of us have the sense to be able to travel to enjoy. And by trying to recognize environmental justice is that we provide that extra effort to make sure that there is the commonality so that we can enjoy the opportunities that our great state provides. We may have people that travel here to enjoy the outdoors more than we have people who have the ability to go actually enjoy the outdoors because of their economic means or their inability to visit. And I think that's important to recognize. Not all of us have that same background. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Mr. Chair, I agree. I agree they may not have the financial means or the whatever where they live background, but I know as well as you and everybody on this committee knows that our open spaces in the metro area are huge, and we spend literally millions of dollars, not from the state fund, but also the parks folks through the Met Council have taxing authority, and they have some beautiful, beautiful parks in the metro area to enjoy outside space and clean air. So I know the dollars that are being spent out there, and they're available for everybody. And I just wanted to make that comment as well. And we all know how much that's, how much we're spending on that. And Minnesotans want to do that. They want to do that through legacy. They want to do that through sometimes LCCMR, and that's fine if it's agreed upon. We're fortunate to have people that want to keep our beautiful, pristine lakes, rivers, and streams, and keep our air clean. And so, thanks.
Thanks, Senator Ingebrigtsen. I want to jump to something kind of following from that, from air to water and aquatic invasive species. And so, again, my memory could be faulty, but 2 years ago, we did raise that AIS surcharge, and that came with an odd number of, I think, $10.60. And Representative Morrison has it again, where the House would dedicate some of that to the Minnesota Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center. So I think that MASERC does good work. Maybe Representative Morrison, if you could just explain your proposal and where you have an increased fee for AIS going.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate your highlighting the problem of aquatic invasive species and the incredible work that MASERC does. We're famous for our lakes in Minnesota, and we use them in all different kinds of ways. We fish, we boat, we swim. It's just sometimes simple contemplation of their beauty, just sitting on their shores and taking them in. But our lakes are threatened by AIS. And MASERC, we are so fortunate to have them. They do incredibly important work. And they don't really have a stable source of funding. And so part of our proposal is to create that so that they can do the necessary research so that we can work to prevent and treat and manage aquatic invasive species. So the proposal, let me just pull it up here, would create an AIS research account by the surcharge on watercraft. And so we'd increase the surcharge. And remember, watercraft are the vectors of AIS. So it seems appropriate that that would be where the funding would come from. So 21 of the $25 would go to the AIS account, and 2 of that will go to grants to lake associations to manage AIS in their lakes. And then $4 from each surcharge would go to the AIS research account for MASERC. So that's the proposal. And it is, I think it's incredibly important. We're at a moment, this past year, we've seen, again, getting back to Senator Ingebrigtsen's point, that we Minnesotans love to get out and enjoy the outdoors and enjoy our lakes. Our lakes are integral to that. We were seeing increased use. I know in my own district, Lake Minnetonka is one of the very favorite lakes in our whole state, and it is well used and well loved. And I know most of us in the area and across the state want to see that lake free of aquatic invasive species, and that's true across the state. So it is my hope that we will be able to find common ground in this area to protect our lakes.
And we lost you a little bit there, or it was in the slow talk bandwidth thing, but I think we got the information. Ms. Taylor, can you highlight where that is in the bill on the side-by-side where the fee increase is? Or maybe Mr. Hagemeyer? I think there's a policy section, Ms. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and members, the section would be section 53 on R30. That's the increase in the watercraft surcharge, if that's what you're looking for.
Yes, Ms. Taylor.
And then there is also an additional section on R23, section 34. That's where the new account is established and where the dedication of the $4 is.
Members, any questions on that? I'm hopeful, Senator Ingebrigtsen, that would be something we supported in the past and could find some common ground. It is not a general fund ask, but it is, I think, important, and MASERC does good work, and I think we've both supported them in the past. So hopefully we could find some common ground there.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
I don't agree. I don't disagree with any of the statements with regards to EIS. We've spent, I don't know if I could say hundreds of millions, but we've spent millions of dollars on it. And again, the folks do care about that. You know, it does come with some angst. Some people are put out of their way, but you know what? If we want to save our lakes and keep the migration of aquatic invasives down to you know, smaller areas in the state, we should strive. Excuse me. We should strive to do that. I'd like to look at something where maybe in the past where we find something like starry stonewort in a lake that we are able to count on the DNR, or if the legislature needs to help, we can do that to contain it in the lake and shut the lake down totally. I mean, that's how serious I think some of this stuff is. And it was told to me just because if we do that, we're going to lose some federal dollars. Well, we're going to spend way more than the federal dollars where the outcome of starry stonewort is going to be, you know, taking these lakes and absolutely making them totally impassable. So, yeah, I would love to see some changes there. And this cost doesn't seem like it's a whole lot, but it's something that we'll consider here down the next couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. I think on some of these views of policy and what is and is not possible, whether it's from the agencies or from tradition, we're in a time where a lot is changing, and so the old certitudes fall away with a willingness to try different things. So I'm hopeful that if we can get good science with MASERC providing some information to us, that helps us guide new ideas for the future, like what you were discussing with the lake. The critters keep coming. It seems like they just keep coming, and starry stonewort is one that is scary for a little plant. But when you think of all the little bulbules with that plant, it can move a lot. So hopefully we could do some things there. We had one other question. I don't know, Senator Ingebrigtsen, if you had any other ones on a different subject.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Yep, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you for spending some time on this aquatic invasives. And I know the DNR commissioner is here, and I'd like to have her views on just what I suggested. That was a different commissioner at the time, and that was an absolute no, we're not going to be able to do that. We were going to make a few local fishermen quite angry, I guess. But I'd like to hear what her views might be if and when, and it's just a matter of time, I guess, when something else comes and starts taking over a lake, and we were able to find it only in one place. Would the commissioner be willing to consider that kind of a quarantine until it could be resolved?
Commissioner Stroman.
Thank you, Chair Hansen and Chair Ingebrigtsen. Senator Ingebrigtsen, I assume when you were referring to the previous response and the reference to federal funds, it has to do with federal funds we receive to establish and maintain those public water accesses. And so I think we'd have to look into that a little bit more. It's not a question that I've researched personally, and know we can ask if Assistant Commissioner Meyer has more information on that. But one thing I will say is that, we're equally concerned about aquatic invasive species generally, starry stonewort specifically, and, future ones that may come in. And I would just highlight on starry stonewort specifically, we actually have a great partnership with MASERC, with University of Minnesota Extension, and volunteers from across Minnesota. We call it Starry Trek, and it's a way that we bring together volunteers, we train them, and we search Minnesota lakes for starry stonewort to try to get ahead of that, so that we don't have to get in a situation where we have to quarantine lakes. And so last year, that group of volunteers searched 238 Minnesota lakes. They did find one new water body. It was Lake Carnelian. And then those volunteers, in cooperation with local partners and the DNR, they went in and they hand-pulled the starry stonewort, followed by an algicide treatment. And I think that's just a really good example of what we can do when we work in partnership, and when we are proactive in early detection and can deal with it before it becomes a situation where we have to take more drastic measures. So just an example of the kinds of things that we are trying, we are innovating to make sure that we are proactively addressing this really critical issue for Minnesota.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, and I'm not going to belabor this, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, but the good work that the volunteers do, along with the cooperation of the the lake associations and the DNR, there's some success stories out there. There's no question, but all that takes money. All that takes money and a lot of time and a lot of worry. Again, I would really appreciate for you to make a real concerted effort into considering that quarantining lakes when we do find substances that are just contained in one lake. We're the land of 100,000 lakes, and I can take the pressure from a couple fishermen that they have to go another 4 miles down the road to fish. If we have to do that. And I think we should all consider that and consider it real strongly, because it just seems like it never ends. The Great Lakes have brought in a lot of invasives, and I don't imagine that's gonna stop overnight either. So, but I would really like some strong consideration by the DNR to look into that and put that policy in place if we call upon that. Thank you.
Any other members? Senator Ingebrigtsen, did you want Commissioner Meyer to try to take he hasn't spoke yet today, so did you want to address a question to him?
Boy, that'd be just fine. And he could talk about the success that we've had probably with the flying invasive carp on the major rivers coming from the south, and maybe give us a little update.
Commissioner Meyer.
Glad to see you're here, Bob.
Mr. Chairman, members, for the record, Bob Meyer, Assistant Commissioner, Department of Natural Resources, and thank you for the great conversation this morning. Commissioner Stroman described successfully and in great detail some of our work there. We've been working down on the Mississippi River in conjunction with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the state of Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources to try some new techniques in invasive carp capture. And we've been very successful. I don't have all of the information in front of me at this point in time, but we can certainly share with you the numbers that we have captured to date and those activities. We use a new technique where we pen them up with the series of nets that has been tried and proven in other places, Illinois in particular, with the federal government and other partners. And we're excited at that technology and the technique, I should say, is being very successful. So, Mr. Chairman, I can provide more information and numbers on that to the committee, and we will do that before your next meeting. Thank you.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
And thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Meyer, for that information. Yeah, I would like to see that. I think we do have a section in the bill about tagging or getting permission or extending that time frame. Is that correct?
Commissioner Meyer. Can you find that?
Mr. Chairman, members, yes, actually in our policy bill from last year, the 2020 policy bill, we were looking to remove a sunset provision that we had placed in statute, allowing us to tag and release invasive fish, invasive carp in this specific example. That work is what has led us to some of these discoveries in Pool 8 and other places in the river. And actually 31 silver carp were picked up back in several weeks ago down in that project specifically. So we would like to remove that sunset provision to allow us to continue using this tool of these fish that then bring us, once they release, they bring us back to other pods of these invasive carp because they congregate or school up like that. So in addition, there's a link on our website that shows the movement of these fish. In just a period of a day or two, they're swimming from Afton State Park up past into Hudson on the St. Croix River at some points in time. So that is just incredible information for us to learn and where their haunts are and their special habitat. So we want to continue doing that. We put the sunset provision in statute originally, just in case it didn't work or we had other issues with it. We didn't want to place it in statute permanently. So now we're comfortable with that technique and the need for it. So we'd like to make it permanent. Thank you.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And while we're on the topic of fish, could I get the DNR's stand or what their feeling is about the initiative from the Senate with regards to lowering statewide the limit of walleye?
Commissioner Meyer.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Ingebrigtsen, thank you for that. And we have testified in support of that initiative. We've been working with Senator Rude and other folks throughout the state to talk about that important issue. Working with the Walleye Alliance, our Walleye Committee, discussing the needs of, or the pressures, we should say, on the walleye fisheries within the state of Minnesota. This issue has come up from them. We were looking at doing an initiative ourselves, introducing our own bill, but having a discussion with Senator Rude and her desire to work on the issue, we decided to work on it jointly. And it's been very successful. I think there's been some criticism because it hasn't come from the DNR or a DNR bill. And I would just like to clarify for the record that it is a DNR supported initiative that we feel should be considered at this point in time.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Yes, thank you. And just a point of clarification, if we do not seek this in legislation, which would go into effect basically, I'm assuming, the next season, how long would it take the DNR through the rulemaking process to make it happen?
Commissioner Meyer.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Ingebrigtsen, period of about a year or two, depending on the process that we would use. We would go through the expedited permanent rule process probably first, and then put it into a permanent rule, which takes a longer time. As you know, we have different authorities than other agencies to establish game and fish seasons and limits of take and things like that. But we would come back and it would take probably a period of about 2 years, I would assume, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Meyer.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also had a couple of questions on that particular issue as it relates to the legislature stepping in and setting fish or game limits. Maybe Commissioner Meyer could expand on that a little bit. And it's a little bit snarky, Commissioner, but at what point shouldn't the legislature intervene and do the job of the DNR?
Commissioner Meyer.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Heinzman, I feel like that's a loaded question, so I'm going to let that one sit for a little bit. There's certain parameters that are established in state statute on DNR's authorities, and other ones were given rulemaking authority. For example, one that I think will be fresh on people's minds here shortly is the opening of fishing. Game fish season, walleye season starts next Saturday, or 12/01 Saturday, May 15th. that is defined in statute, as well as the opening of other hunting seasons. The limits of take, methods, numbers, we've been given rulemaking authority to establish zones. Turkey season right now, we have authority to establish the zones, the number of animals or per zone taken, and the methods of take in some cases as well. We like to work with the legislature on these issues as much as possible and have discussions because they can impact so many different people. A lot of our rulemaking decisions are just the hours and the zones and the numbers of deer, turkey, bear, fish in certain areas, things like that. But there are also general overarching authorities that the legislature has with the DNR as well.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a little less snarky, but probably just as dangerous, Commissioner. Can you tell the committee when the last time the legislature set a fish or game limit? And then also, why is it that the DNR couldn't expedite this process and do its job if that's what's necessary? If that's what the science is telling us, what is it that keeps DNR from moving forward? So those two questions together, if you could, Commissioner.
Commissioner Meyer.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Heinzman, there were a series of species that were added to the game take over the past decade by the legislature, probably a little bit over a decade. Mourning doves, sandhill cranes are a couple of examples that the legislature provided authority for residents and non-residents to harvest in the state of Minnesota within certain seasons and limits. And we supported that. We worked with the legislature to do that. And then we established the dates and things like that by rule. So those are a couple of examples there. We have been considering doing this walleye limit change statutorily for several years, or I should say by rulemaking process, surveying people with our general surveys that we do on an annual basis. And there is support for it. It's not 75-25, but it's, there's more than 50% support for changing that right now. And the pressures that we see, particularly in the winter seasons nowadays, is phenomenal. So if you see it in your area, in your district representative, the numbers of wheelhouses going up and down the roads, 371 and other places to go up north ice fishing is great. We're excited about people doing that, but it's also placing pressure on the fishery. So as I said, knowing there was interest within the legislature, we decided to work with the legislature on this rather than go through the rulemaking process. A couple things, it's faster, as we've discussed already, and it attracts more publicity and more media. I think people get a better understanding of what's going on sometimes than it would be done through a traditional rulemaking process, perhaps.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am thinking about the sandhill crane example. That's, I think, like you said, a decade or so back. Do you know off the top of your head, Commissioner, how many times the legislature has done this? And I just say as a comment on my own, I am concerned the precedent that it would set, because I do think that the DNR is more than capable of addressing this issue. It may be somewhat controversial, and someone could read between the lines on that and see that maybe there's a sharing of some of that criticism that is a benefit to making a decision that would have statewide impact like this. But I think it's fair to argue that this is very rare, and maybe you could just confirm that, Commissioner.
Representative Heinzman, I think we broke the seal a few years ago when the legislature added 3 days to the pheasant season to make sure that it went the first weekend in January. I seem to remember that one quite vividly, as a legislative initiative. And, it seems that when people agree with a legislative initiative, it's awesome. And when they disagree with it, the DNR should do it and vice versa. But I understand where you're coming from. And Commissioner Meyer, if you can answer the question.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Heinzman, we can go back and look at individual species and authorities that have been given to the department and how that was done by rule or by statute. As Chairman Hansen talked about, there's typically a lot of interest within the legislature about how we manage our game and fish species and the opportunity that we provide, because we are the state of Minnesota and people love to do that in our outdoor heritage. And we welcome those conversations with the legislature. We used to do separate game and fish bills on an annual basis. Now we just incorporate it into a general policy bill because of that interest. It just attracts a lot of topics. As Representative Hansen said, years ago, there was a lot of discussion on pheasants and seasons. The legislature has also provided restrictions on how we can manage populations such as the elk. The legislature put on requirements on the number of animals we must take and harvest based on populations and percentages. And we've been working on that with the local constituents and the local groups as much as possible. So the 3 rooster bag limit, for example, that Representative Hansen was talking about was a legislative direction as well after December 1st, looking at seasons. We welcome these conversations with stakeholders, be it through the legislature or through a rulemaking process. I hope that helps provide a little bit of background for your question, Representative Heinzman.
Representative Heinzman.
Yeah, that does help, Mr. Chair. And of course, the pheasants issue is, and the legislature stepping in, probably another one that was good to remind folks of. I have received a surprisingly large number of correspondence with fishing organizations around the state that have made a couple of, well, not a couple, but are saying that there's concern that they have with us making this step. Not saying that it's necessarily wrong. It's probably a good move to look more closely at this and make an adjustment to the limit, but it would, I think, make more sense if DNR were to be basing that decision on the requirements of the process that's in place. But obviously there's a lot of conversation to be had around this issue. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Meyer, Deputy Commissioner Meyer. I might remind the members that the legislature did step in on the muskie, and I know everybody's going to smile now, but the muskie situation some years back, Mr. Meyer, with regards to the muskie program that was going on, the muskie policy that the DNR had. And in one fell swoop, the legislature came in and raised the minimum from 48 to 54 inches before you're able to take a muskie in the state of Minnesota. So those, there's an example of the legislature coming in. I don't think there was a whole lot of discussion going on there. However, you do make the case of sometimes rulemaking is not necessarily the way to go, not necessarily reaching as many people as one would think, especially in the lake of, states in the lake of Minnesota, with all the lakes in Minnesota. By the way, 1/10 of them that I have in my district, I have over 1/10 of the lakes in my district, where, you know, that takes up, that's a lot of conversation because a lot of people fish and a lot of people care about that. You know, I'm kind of making the same case that a lot of people drive cars and a lot of people like to know what ends up with cars. And you know, we haven't talked about the standards here at all today, Mr. Chairman. However, I think Mr. Meyer just made my case that sometimes the legislature spreading out to 201 different districts in the state of Minnesota would be a better way than just one or two people in St. Paul making a decision. So that can go both ways. And I know the legislative authority came out, it was ruled on yesterday but that still doesn't stand in the way of our requests. So I just wanted to make that clear. But that was an interesting comment, and I think I agree with you, Deputy Commissioner Meyer, on that.
We have a question for Mr. Jaschke or Ms. Becker-Kudelka, and it's on the soil health goal. Discussing, I think that was a Representative Lippert provision. If you could maybe just describe where that is and a little bit about that and the Board of Water and Soil Resources involvement. And then also, Director Jaschke, if you support the increase in the per diem for the Soil and Water District Supervisor.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. John Jaschke, Executive Director, Board of Water and Soil Resources. I'll take the second question first. Yes, that update or catch-up provision for the Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor per diem, we support that. And Mr. Chairman, on the other point, more on the soil health policy pieces, as I think we indicated in our letter, the governor did include a soil health program establishment in the policy provision. I know that the House added, I think, some definition around the practices. I think those are good to have in the bill as well. The one piece that's, I think, maybe need a little more work is the part around the goal specifically. I think there's a goal of a numeric goal in there, and that goal may work in some places, but of course, Minnesota has a very different landscape from one place to another in our ag land areas where this soil health provision would be most relevant is also very different, right? We have very high topography and slopes in southeastern Minnesota and different precipitation regimes. And similarly, if you go northwest, it's much different. Temperature, growing season, crop type, practices and so forth. So we think goals are good. It's just that we think that there may need to be more specificity that you would need to apply to that, right? Instead of having one number for all practices over the whole state. Some more work on that, perhaps with some kind of a group of experts to come together. We have the University of Minnesota Office for Soil Health that could be very instructive in helping us do that with some scientific backing. Of course, there's a lot of practitioners out there too that could, I think, be helpful in that. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my comments.
Under Ingebrigtsen.
I have nothing, but thank you for that report, Director. Thanks.
Your hand was still up, so. Okay. Members, it is nearing 12 noon on a Saturday. And so are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? I hope this has been helpful. We look forward to I think Senator Ingebrigtsen, the Senate has the gavel at 1 p.m. on Monday. We have Mother's Day off tomorrow, but for no meetings, but the Senate has the gavel on Monday. The House has it on Tuesday, and then alternating through next Saturday, and then no meeting on the Sunday before adjournment on of the regular session on the 17th. Is my understanding. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for the conversation today. Yes, you can look forward to a counter proposal, or at least a Senate position document coming out of respect for moms, and I'm sure there are some on this committee that are and have moms. I will be doing it before Sunday, so everybody have a good Mom's Day here and enjoy the decent weather, and we'll see you on Monday.
Senator Ingebrigtsen, if you're in West St. Paul, you could go to the Garlow Environmental Elementary plant sale, which is going until 5 o'clock today, and help out those kids and that school. So maybe I'll see you there.
Yeah, maybe you will, actually. However, my better half, I should say, has some planting instructions for me to get to when I get home, and I think the plants are already purchased. So, but thanks for the invite.
You can always get more. Members, we are adjourned.